just to give you an idea of what we're looking at today, we're going to keep this very broad, right? Student pilots have a lot of questions, and we want to keep this broad, not just about our flight school, Wayman Aviation. We've been here for 33 years, graduated thousands of pilots that are flying around the world for American Airlines and JetBlue and LAN and Lufthansa and so many others. But what we want to do is just talk about aviation in general, flight training in general, and whether you're flying with us in South Florida or in California or wherever it might be, we want to make sure your questions are answered.
And also feel free to text which country you're joining the Zoom meeting from, please. I see a lot of nice names here, Mohammed and Leonardo, Farouk, different countries. I can see that. I can see some Latin America, Turkey, I think. Mohammed, maybe, I'm not sure. Yeah, feel free to use the chat box so we can see where you're from.
Absolutely, right? So a few rules, or not even rules, but some guidelines. If everyone could please put here in the chat, if you're live with us in Zoom, go ahead and put what country you're from in the chat box. Those of you that are watching us on Facebook Live, if you could do the same, go ahead and put what country you're from so we know what audience we're talking to, right? To give you an idea, we are located in South Florida in the United States. I'm from Peru, and so I've seen the flight schools. I know the flight schools in Peru and South America. Erkan over here is from Turkey, and he spent a lot of time in Germany, so he can talk about IASA, he can talk about Middle East flight training. We have a lot of Chinese students. So no matter what part of the world you're from, we can probably have some knowledge about the flight training in that part of the world. So again, for everyone joining us right now, we're here to talk about student pilot frequently asked questions, right? FAQs. What we want to talk about is what's on your mind, right? Can we answer your questions from whatever part of the world you're from, and kind of dive into it. We have a few frequently asked questions that I know are very common, and we can jump into those, but we want to hear from you. So please, again, in the comments, in the chat, write what country you're from and write your questions in there. The earlier you get them, the more likely we are to answer your questions. So don't be shy. If you have a question, probably the other person sitting virtually next to you in another country probably has the same question, right?
Right.
So we'll start with some brief introductions, right? Who are we and why are we knowledgeable about flight training? So I am Wayman Eddy Louis, second generation manager here at Wayman Aviation. We're a very large flight academy located in South Florida in Miami, flying 42 aircraft across 2 bases, literally thousands of pilots flying around the world. And today I have a special honor, a distinction to have a great guest and friend, Erkan Osmeri.
Thanks, Eddie. I appreciate that. It's a privilege for me. I'm with Wayman for actually 4 or 5 years, and literally in the family for last 2 years. I'm running the business as a head of sales management and admissions management. So great to be here. We are the largest flight academy in South Florida with 42 aircraft and more than 40 instructors in the house. And yeah, we've been providing flight training for the last 33 years. And I'm sure we're gonna provide another flight training in 33 years more, I'm guessing. So yeah, we are here today to answer your questions. I would like to be straightforward. We are not selling anything. We just want to guide you to the right path, because it's really difficult to find the right school because there are no criteria, or there are a lot of criteria actually. So yeah, today we are together with our VP, Vice President Eddy. We are together to guide you to the right path. It can be us, it can be somebody else. So just ask us any questions in your minds, please.
So Erkan, let me build on that. I have a little bit of a metaphor here. I tend to talk in metaphors for those of you that know me. I think of flight training like an Apple store, right? No matter where you are around the world, you've probably been to an Apple store, right? You walk into an Apple store, everything looks nice and clean, and you'll notice that they're not trying to sell you anything, right? The Apple store is not trying to sell you anything. They know you want to get yourself an iPhone or a laptop or something like that. They're just there to help you find the right one, right? I feel the same way about flight training. People that are logged on right now onto Zoom or watching us on Facebook Live, I know you're already interested in flight training. I know you want to be a pilot, you've dreamt about it, or maybe you want your son, your daughter, your brother's interested in learning to fly. And so we're just here to help answer those general questions about flight training. Right now, Erkan, you have a really interesting background. Can you tell us how you got interested in
Thank
aviation.
you. Yes. So I started really early with what a Turkish Air Force, and early ages actually. It gave me the discipline. Actually, my family was in Air Force. My dad was military aircraft technician, like your dad, Eddie. So we grew up in aviation, the hangars and aircrafts and all that. And then later on, I served in NATO in different countries, and I ended up in Boeing for 2 years. I worked as a test flight engineer and a project coordinator. So basically, that was my first civilian aviation background starting. And then later on, I went back to Europe again, worked 1.5 years, 2 years in the radar aircrafts. And then I came back here to Florida and served in American Airlines almost a year in operations, actually. So that was great gain for me. I learned a lot about operations, how difficult it is in airliners. It's not like sitting back, buckling up, getting your Coca-Cola or something and flying the A to B. It's not like that. It's just a lot of work, a lot of things, a lot of energy going behind the curtains that you never see as a passenger. So, and luckily, at the end, I joined the Wayman Aviation Academy as a manager. So I'm happy here, and it's a great atmosphere. And we are graduating actually almost 200 students each year. So that's great. As I said before, we are the largest flight academy at the moment and accredited by the governmental organizations. Means it is a serious school. So that's one thing I can give you now while I was talking about myself. I finished my CPL in Belgium, by the way. So I have EASA license, so you can ask me European licenses as well. I know my Turkish friends will be interested in this. So when I was flying in military, when I knocked at the door in Belgium flight school, I didn't know what private pilot license was. So I didn't know the abbreviation PPL. So I didn't know how I'm going to get it, although I spent already 20 years in military aviation. So I think we are so lucky group now at the moment that there are some path and we are guiding it. We are putting a flashlight on that for you guys. So again, I'm telling you, I'm repeating myself, ask us anything in your mind. I don't want anybody to leave this conversation with some questions in their minds. So yeah, thank you for opportunity, Eddie. It's great.
Thank you. So I always like to ask this question, Erkan. What's your favorite airplane?
Oh, DC-3, which is military C-47. I get actually, it's here. I can show you that. So
it's classic.
it is really classic. It's really nice, 14-cylinder. My dad was technician on this in Turkish Air Force. And then, yeah, I grew up in this and outside of it. So what is yours?
My favorite, SR-71 Blackbird.
That's great.
Always has been since I was a kid. I go out of my way to find them if they're on display. Fastest plane ever produced in series. So love it. I love it.
Well, I think our guests can write me what their important or how you say the favorite aircraft is.
Sure.
So I'm waiting for messages on that.
So we're starting to get some feedback here. We've got students calling in right now from Peru and from Turkey, from Brazil. Muito obrigado. Thank you for coming in from Brazil. Big flying country in Brazil, big country. We've always had excellent students from Brazil, excellent students from Turkey, and definitely a lot of great students from Peru. So thank you so much. We know a little bit about those countries, so we'll try to make sure it applies. I'm glad to see there's an international flair to it. We're pretty evenly split right now. I'd say about 60% 40 international students and 40% local students. So we have a pretty good understanding of both. So if you're a local student and you want us to dive into that, we can even tell you about universities because we're partnered with Miami-Dade, Embry-Riddle, Liberty University. Has a really interesting program, highly recommended. And at the same time, on the international side, we work with visas, right? So we process student visas, I-20s. Embassies right now are a big deal. International travel right now is a big deal. So if you've got questions about that, we can definitely dive in on it. So for anyone joining us at this point, we're pretty steady on the Zoom. And if anyone joining us on Facebook, feel free to put questions. We've got Guillen answering questions in the Facebook group as well, right? So we'll keep those going. Yeah, absolutely. So let's go ahead and start perhaps with our FAQ list, right? Because we have some common questions that we already chose that we figured would be, a good place to start. Questions that we hear all the time.
Exactly. We got almost over 50 questions. We made a list actually. All these questions are the common questions, but obviously we don't have time to touch base with 50 questions here today because it's going to take hours, as you presume. But we chose maybe 10, 15, right, Eddie? Like really prominent
Yeah.
ones, really important ones. So we're going to go with that.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to do it. Would you like me to read them off? Start with the first one?
Yeah, actually, the head question for me, since I joined as a manager to the school, is like, it is admission prerequisites. It's really important. This answer will be like up and down the same for all the schools for you guys. Obviously, there are some differences between local students and the non-US students, but I'm going to give you a general picture first. So due to liability, you have to be, as a foreigner in the United States soil, after your 18th birthday. So you have to be 18 years old to join us. Okay, but local students can come here at the age of 17 as long as their parents together with them and sign the contracts and everything. So why foreign students are coming here 18, why we are accepting them at the age of 18 is because of the liability. Because if anything happens to you here, let's say a traffic accident or something like that, so there's a liability going on. So you have to be at the age of 18. The second thing is we are asking for, actually government is asking for it, a high school diploma. Any high school diploma from any country, the legal high school diploma will work. That is one of the items that, one of the questions that I'm coming across a lot. And also,
well, let's take it even a step back.
Yeah,
let's take it even a step back because those are our policies, but we want to even look at it broadly, right? So the FAA says the legal age to start flight training is 17, right?
Yes.
If you're, you can solo at 16. Isn't that amazing? You can take an airplane and solo at 16. You can get a private pilot license at 17 and a commercial pilot's license at 18, right?
Yes.
And for those, a high school diploma is not required, but I recommend it. You're going to be doing some math in your head, no calculus, right? But you're going to have to be able to do some good division, subtraction, multiplication, mostly in your head while you're flying,
yes.
right?
Basic mathematics. Yeah,
right. So the FAA minimums are actually pretty straightforward. And of course, you have to be in good health to fly. You've got to be in good health to pass an FAA medical. For a student, it's a class 3 medical, which is pretty simple. I mean, could be like a 20-minute visit to a doctor, and not all doctors do it. They have to be special airman medical doctors. But if you're thinking about flying for a career, go ahead and get the class 1 medical, right? The class 1 medical is what the airline pilots need. So if you do a class 1 medical, which is just a little bit more in depth, covers vision, color, if you're over 40, an EKG that your heart is strong, diabetes, medical history, those kind of things. Exactly. The reason we say go ahead and get a class 1 medical, even though you're a student pilot, is in case anything pops up, right? In case there's any anything that has to be resolved or fixed or you got to work on, you know about it before you make a $10, $20, $50,000 investment in your flight training, right? Because yes. I would be disappointed from myself, or if I was a parent, to invest all this money into flight training, and then you get to the airlines, they give you medical, and you can't fly, right? Exactly. So definitely be aware of that one. Now, those are the FAA rules. Most academies, so we're an academy, a larger school, 42 airplanes, they'll have even higher levels. Remember, the FAA is the basics. That's like the law, right? Now, above that, schools will have their own prerequisites. Generally speaking, for international programs, like Erkan said, we're going to want to see that you're 18 years and over, because in the US, 18 is the legal age of an adult. So at 18 years old, you can sign a contract, you can rent an apartment, you can speak for yourself, right? Younger than that, you really need parental approval. So that's why we have 18 as our starting age for flight training.
Correct.
And then the high school education as well. We have a rigorous, intensive, full-time program, right? So we want to make sure our students know how to study. And if you've been able to pass at least high school education, secondary school, we know that you can study, right? You can pass some tests, you've got that accomplishment under your belt. A little bit more flexible for local students, like I said, because they're not held to that professional pilot rigor that our international students are. So as we talk about this, you know, Erkan, I think this is a good point. As we go through this interview, let's put on 2 hats, our local hat and our international
International hat, yeah.
professional pilot hat,
Agree.
because we probably have a little bit of both. Actually, if you're on the Facebook or the Zoom, let us know if any of you only want to do your private pilot rating or if you're professionally oriented. Like, let us know if you're a professional pilot, you want to work in the airlines, you want to be in charge of some heavy metal, or let us know if you're a private pilot and you just want to, be able to fly for fun, friends and family, take a Cessna down the beach, that kind of stuff, right?
I cannot pass without touching base with the English level as well for the
Okay.
requirements. So English is really important. It's an aviation language. It's legally globally approved. So International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, we call it in abbreviated way. Since 2012 or 13, actually, it's been provided a regulation. Regulation says, okay, I have 6 steps, 6 levels of English. And then to be pilot, you have to get 3, 4, 5, or 6. So parallel to this, we are, once you enroll with us, we are testing you, online test, your general English level, not aviation English level. That's a big question coming up every day to me. Are you checking my aviation? No, I'm not checking your aviation English level. We are teaching you aviation English. We are checking your general English level, which is 3, 4 means intermediate English level. FAA regulates this with a form says you have to have working knowledge of English parallel to intermediate level. It doesn't talk about any TOEFL test or IELTS test or university test. Well, how we do that is we are applying an English test, level test, parallel to what ICAO is asking for in the future when you apply for airliner job. So what if I have 1 or 2 out of 6 then? So there are 2 paths that you can follow. Either you can come to US or any other country or your own country, go to association or any course and enhance your English level. Or you can come here and join our sister school to enhance your English level to 3 and 4 or above. Or you can choose one of the Wayman made in-the-house English courses that we are providing. So why is it so important? Well, every single thing, in the air or on the ground, you're reading or listening, everything is in English. So if your English is 1 or 2 out of 6, it means that you're in the beginner level. Well, I can get you here with that English. I can get you started, but you will not understand anything. As an ethical and honest school, we are saying that, hey, don't come here or come here to an English course, but enhance your English to the minimum level 3, please. So basically, it will help you in the long run, not to save much money and not to save a lot of time to get your licenses. That's really important. I don't know what you think, Eddie.
I couldn't agree more with you. Having done this for such a long time, probably the 2 biggest factors that tell me if a student's going to succeed are by far, number 1, how's their English, right? If the student is a level 4, which is an advanced intermediate English, as long as they put in the effort, they will succeed. Now, if you drop down to a level 3, it gets a little bit shakier. And a level 1 or 2, I would not recommend you start flight training in the US because all flight training is required to be in English, right? So that means that all the ground schools are in English. Communications with the tower from day 1, first day you're in an airplane, you're going to be talking on the radio to the tower, the controller. So you need to be able to understand what they're saying, and you need to be able to communicate what your intentions are, right? So it's very important that you have a good, strong grasp of English. Doesn't have to be perfect. English is my 2nd language. Erkan, it's probably like your 3rd language, right?
Yes.
So definitely, if you want to be a pilot, start working on your English. Yeah. Sign up for a program in your hometown. Sign up for a program online. That having good, strong English leads to being a good, strong pilot. Now,
extremely important.
Yeah. Now we've got people here from Brazil, from Peru, from Turkey. You could learn how to fly in Brazil entirely in Portuguese, right? And you do flight training outside of Sao Paulo. There's a good airport, and you can learn how to fly. But I'll tell you this: you're only going to fly inside of Brazil, right? Exactly. International pilots have to be able to speak English, because when you depart from Sao Paulo to land in Miami, you got to be speaking English, right? If you're flying from Germany to Tokyo, you got to be able to speak English, because that's how you're able to take off from one country and land in another place. So English is probably the most important factor of whether or not you'll be successful at flight training in the US. And around the world, when you look at the Chinese flight schools, they the CAA, which is the equivalent to the Chinese FAA, they require that students train in English-speaking countries because they need to be able to speak English in order to fly internationally. Right?
Exactly.
Now, we've already got a few questions coming
Exactly.
in the chat box. Should we take
Let's
some of
jump
these?
into that. Yeah, I would like to jump into the chat box. Burçin from Turkey, I believe, asking me, actually, I have a question about the remote learning process. Due to COVID-19, e-learning programs are rising in Turkey. What do you think
Sure.
about this approach? Well, really good point, actually. I was going to touch base on that. COVID precautions and online training. During my lunchtime, I was listening to the president of Michigan University. So apparently, universities are thinking about opening back in the United States in September again. So we had really hard times with COVID-19 globally. I know that Turkey, Italy, Brazil now, Latin America, everywhere. So we had extreme precautions not to stop our training, actually. So we have over 150 students at the moment in the house. Think about like a lot of students, a lot of aircraft, people waiting for to fly and all that. Extreme precautions like we starting from using masks all the time, gloves and washing the aircraft ups and down from head to tail every weekend, really detailed wash stops. And after every flight, cleaning the aircraft's cockpits inside and out. So those kind of precautions actually served well. So we are, Burçin, still providing flight training. We are up and running. We are actively flying with this, conducting this together with conducting this precautions. But e-learning is always the part of the aviation, actually. So you're in Turkey, you're close to Europe, for example, EASA theory. It's another pain, right? Like 14 classes taking almost a year. I'm going to come to that point later on. Yes, we provided and we are currently providing online training. And every month, I will say sharply or roughly on the third Monday of the months, we are starting our PPL instrument commercial online training. And every month we are advertising our online programs for you to join us for the following month. And we provided promotion on that. Normally our online, ground courses are $1,200, but because of the COVID-19, we drop it down to $600. So basically, if you want to join to July class, it is the time to enroll for it. It takes 60 hours for a private pilot license, approximately 3 weeks, and it's $600. It's a great course. I myself joined it as well. And it's basically a webinar, which means online, you're one-on-one with your instructor, together with the other attendees. So, and the classrooms is always around 10 to 15 students. So I don't know if it is answer to your question.
Well, let's take it a step back. Now, COVID is affecting everything, right? COVID-19 is affecting everything. Airlines it's definitely affecting them, and we can talk about that next. Whether you're flying here in the US or internationally, you've got to think about COVID and keeping yourself and your family safe, right? So the US, and this is actually kind of something curious for for those of you that are internationally, please let us know in the comments what's happening in your country. But here in the US, airports are considered part of critical infrastructure, right? Critical infrastructure, which means they cannot be shut down unless the federal government, the president says, shut down all of the airports. So that's unlikely to happen. They've reduced flights, that they haven't shut down the airports. So under that, in the US, flight schools can continue to operate, even though we have to have social distancing. I have my mask right here. When I go out of the office, I gotta wear my mask. So COVID-19 definitely affects things. So today I'm working remotely half the time, and half the time I'm in the building. Today I'm actually in my office at North Perry Airport in Fort Lauderdale, which is our base. And so we're lucky to be able to continue flying here in the US. So all of our international students, all of our local students, we're not flying as much, but we're still continuing our flight training. Now, that might be different in your country, right? I know that Peru is pretty tightly locked down. Europe is starting to reopen again, right? So that varies from country to country. So here in the US, we are flying. So what's the big ramification is a lot more online courses, right? So things like our ground schools, our online ground schools. So it used to be that when you arrived in the US, you would go straight into ground school for about 2 weeks while your visa and TSA processing was going on before you started flying, right? So clearly, not a lot of people are coming into the US right now. So we've gone ahead and with the FAA's authorization, we've created an online ground school, which is 100% 141 FAA certified. We're not the only ones. Many of the big flight schools around the country are doing this. And it basically allows our students to do their ground school before they arrive. So if you sign up for that now, you can start in August, in September, where hopefully travel has picked up again, and you already have your ground school done. So instead of waiting 2 weeks, hopefully you'll ride right into starting to fly, which is all what we all want to do, right? We want to fly. So I think it's a good thing. There's a limit to it though, right? You can do ground school all day long, but you've got to fly. You've got to actually, log the hours in your logbook and put on the headsets and feel the airplane. That's not something we can teach remotely. Now, you can start with simulators. That's a good place to start. I know a lot of countries, actually probably most countries, you do all of the ground school before you ever touch a plane, private, instrument, commercial. I do not recommend that, right? Because some things just make sense when you're in the airplane, right? You can talk about VORs all day long, but until you see the needle swing inside the airplane, you're like, oh, that's what a VOR is, right? So yes, go ahead and do your private. Do English, aviation English is a great place to start. But ultimately, you got to fly, right? So get your ground out of the way, get your written test done if you have access to an FAA testing site or testing center in your own country. That's good just to get out of the way because you're already in the aviation mindset. It'll definitely save you time in the future.
Perfect preparation, actually. Mindset is all about preparing. Once you start at 50% is done. It's all about that. Remember, when I was in military, I told you guys, I don't know PPL. What does it mean? Private pilot license? What does it mean? Not back like 15 years ago or something. So later on, I found my path. And once you're diving in, 50% of the bridge is gone. So it's good. I want to jump into Leonardo's question, actually, from Brazil. Good question, ATP rating. So ATP, airline transport pilot, is a license. First of all, let's correct the terminology.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to tell you something about, obviously, FAA regulations. I don't know how it is in Brazil, Leonardo. But to reach the ATP license, you have to have 1,500 total hours here. So once you hit the 1,500 total hours, now you're going to ask me how am I going to reach that. I'm going to come to that point later on. Let me finish this. 1,500 hours. Once you finish that, there's an ATP CTP written exam out of 100 question, I think it was. 2 years ago, I said that. So you're passing this exam and you're acquiring your ATP license here. So the good way to reach to 1,500 hours is to be a certified flight instructor in the United States, because you are graduating in a flight school here with approximately 250 hours. Now you're missing 1,250 hours. So the best way, and to make money as well, is to be certified flight instructor. So I think it is answer to your question. If you ask me this question as well, as a Brazilian, how can I be a certified flight instructor? I'm going to come to that point later on because it is so parallel to our university programs as well, if you don't mind. Mm-hmm. What do you think, Eddie?
No, I agree. So the ATP is relevant. Leonardo says he's a co-pilot at LATAM, which is excellent. You're well advanced on your aviation career. So the ATP is the license you need to be an airline pilot, right? We start with private, which is where you learn how to fly, the basics, how to control an airplane, land, take off, navigation, safety. Instrument rating lets you fly at nights in bad weather, makes you a stronger pilot. Your commercial license, that's where you can start working for hire, right? So at that point, people do charters, they tow banners. Many people choose to flight instruct themselves, not for everybody, but it's a good way to build your time until you have the 1,500 hours that Erkan spoke about. Now, that's not worldwide. The US has the rule of 1,500 hours to be an airline pilot. But many places around the world, you can go right into an A320 or an Embraer with 250, 300, 500 hours. That changes country to country now. What I will tell you, in the US, it's a 1,500-hour rule. And in many places around the world, because you have a lot of available pilots right now, it's important to have that greater experience to, have that difference. And here's a beautiful thing. So Leonardo, clearly you have a license in Brazil, right? If you are a Brazilian pilot that also has an FAA license, you're even more important in the eyes of your boss, right? Because not only can you fly the Brazilian aircraft, but you can fly unregistered aircraft that are registered in the U.S., right? And something like 60% of the world's aircraft are registered in the U.S. They might be flying in Africa or in South America and Chile or wherever, but many of them have their registration here in the U.S. When they start with an N, like November, that's a U.S. registered aircraft. So it's a good point. There's some really
Yes.
interesting questions going on here. There's a question here from Mohammed Muyudi. Doesn't say where he's from. Where are you from, Mohammed? Um, so he's asking about Part 61 training. So
Okay.
this is a whole topic right here. We could do an entire presentation about 141 and Part 61.
61, yes.
So I'm going to try to simplify it as best as I can, right? Part 61 training is meeting the requirements. It's very loose training, right? It's like homeschooling, right? I don't know if that's a common
Boutique
term
hotel,
around the
maybe.
world.
How do you
Yeah,
say
I think that,
boutique hotel?
was
Like
that?
a boutique hotel, maybe?
No, I wouldn't even go that way. I'm going a different route. So think about Part 61 as homeschooling. And people around the world do homeschooling where you learn at home from your parents, from friends and neighbors, and you do homeschooling and you take the tests in your community at the state or country level to get your equivalent of a high school diploma, right? I know people that do this in South America, people do it here in the US. You're homeschooled, right? That's kind of like going to the instructor, any instructor, a little airport. They're a CFI, they're legal to teach you how to fly, all right? And that's kind of what a Part 61 license is. It's very flexible. There's not a lot of rules around it. It's just basically learn to fly, pass the test. That's what a Part 61 is. So Part 141 is now a formal school. It's a formal school or academy where you go to a place that usually has 10 or more airplanes, although there are smaller ones, but usually 10 or more airplanes. And now they have management, they have a curriculum, a syllabus. It's more structured, right? There's lesson one, lesson two, lesson three. It's not just let's go fly and, meet your cross country requirement, right? You build up to it. And very often in 141, actually no, always in 4141, there's quality control flights called stage checks. So for example, in your private pilot, there's at least 3 stage checks. The first stage check makes sure that you've learned the basics and you are ready to do your first solo. And it's usually not with your instructor. So this is a big difference. Part 141 is in a school that's big enough to have a chief pilot or assistant chief pilot that's going to come in and check if you're safe. Not just if you're doing well, but that your instructor is doing well, right? In Part 61, there's nobody checking that your instructor is doing it right. He could be, a 10,000 hour pilot, but 10,000 hour pilots, we have bad habits too, right? So it's good to have somebody else come in and give you that second opinion. That's usually the first stage check. The second stage check says you're ready to go out on cross countries. You're ready to go take off from this airport and fly 50 nautical miles, 100 kilometers to another airport and get back. That's the important part, right? To get back. So that's usually your second stage check. Are you ready to do that? And your third stage check is usually, are you ready to take the test? And that's the practical test. There's a written, oral, and practical test to get every license for your private, for your instrument, for your commercial, and even for your ATP. The ATP one is usually done in a simulator, right? Now, a big simulator like a 737 simulator or an Airbus simulator, that's the norm. It can be done in an airplane, but that's kind of what normal is. So to recap, Part 61 is more independent, loose flight training that gets you ready to pass the test. 141 is more of a structured syllabus approach that prepares you for the test. Again, it's the equivalent of homeschooling or going to a nice school or university, that kind of thing, that has all the facilities and simulators and that kind of stuff. For those of you interested in flying in the US, if you're on a student visa, you are required to be on a 141 program. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. There's been a lot of debate about it over the years, but the FAA, SEVIS, who controls US student visas, and the local FISDOs have been starting to, what's the word I'm looking for here? Starting to be a lot tougher on this. If you're in the US, you're required to be in a 141 training program, right? So if if Joe Pilot on the corner says, "Oh, come learn to fly with me, Part 61 on a tourist visa," not legal.
No, no, no
Right?
go.
It's not legal. Don't do that. Right? The last thing you need is
Yeah.
to get deported from the U.S. If you're a pilot, you need to be able to fly in and out of the U.S. and not have to report that every time. Right? Um, Erkan, do you think that's a good
That is,
explanation of Part
that,
141?
yeah, that's really important point actually. I would like to emphasize it again and again. You don't want to be an illegal person in the United States, right? So basically what you said is really important, Eddie. You cannot be trained as a pilot with tourist visa. That's period. So there's no go for it. And also the new regulation last year they brought up, so if you're a student on a visa, which is M1 or F1, you have to be in Part 141 curriculum. So be careful with that. Some schools may draw like really nice, colorful picture for you, but don't be trapped with that. If there's no question, actually, Gian pushed a nice blog that we had written about it, Part 141 and 61 difference. Please go ahead and click on that and you can read the difference, a nice blog from Wayman.net.
Yeah.
And every single detail, you can find it there.
Yeah.
Before leaving Mohammed, I want to jump over to his another question, if you don't mind. DGCA regulations. So DGCA is Department of Aviation for some countries. So yeah, I told you 33 years, right, under the belt. So we are really experienced. We don't want you to get graduated here, go back to your country and hanging loose in the wind. As an experienced school, we know what is waiting for you in your own countries, especially Latin America, Turkey, Europe, Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, everywhere, because we are graduating tons of students each year from those countries. One of them is Saudi Arabia, one of them is Europe, for example. I can come to that point. Saudi Arabia is a good example for you. The Saudi Arabian Civil Aviation Organization is asking for 25 hours multi-engine training. That's why our advanced professional pilot program is including 25 hours advanced training, multi-engine training. So yes, our FAA regulations are here. That's the master. But also our curriculum is complying with your own country's regulations as well. So I think it's an answer for your question, Mohammed.
Absolutely. So every country has their own DGCA or FAA or EASA or SAA, right? They're mostly aviation authorities of whatever country it is. Now, here's the beautiful thing. Most countries base their regulations either on US or FAA regulations, right? What does that mean? So FAA regulations, the FAR-AIMS, I have one behind me over there. For example, most of South America takes the US FAR-AIM. Yep, that's the book right there.
I can show you actually.
Yeah. Federal Aviation Rules, Airman Information Manual.
Yes.
Right? That's all the rules of the road, right? You're definitely going to get one if you're a student pilot.
Yeah.
So the FAA sets the standard, and most of the Caribbean and South America follows what the FAA says, right? Now, in Africa and some Caribbean countries, they follow EASA, which is the European Aviation rules. They have some differences, but most of the hours are the same. Like most aviation authorities need you to have between 200 and 250 hours to become a commercial pilot. Our program is 240, all right? The other big ones are the CAA in China, the DGCA, India and Saudi and all those. So our program meets the requirements of the vast majority of programs that are out there for what's called conversions, convalidations. That's when you take an FAA license and you convert it to an Indian license. We actually just last year, I was in Delhi and I met with one of our alumni, Mayank, who's flying right now for Air India, did all his program with us, went through that conversion process where you have to take the written test and usually maybe even a practical test in your own home country. We also have actually in Saudi, we have somebody flying for, I forget what airline he's flying for. Really good guy. But we have a lot of students flying at Emirates, at Qatar, at a lot of the airlines in the Middle East as well. They were able to convert their licenses without much trouble. But there's always a little tweak. So for example, in Singapore, you need 35 hours of multi-engine. And our program has 25 hours of multi-engine, right? So those students have to fly 10 more hours in multi-engine, right?
Exactly.
It's just one of those things we've learned over time. Oh, you're from Singapore? You need to fly 10 more hours of multi-engine, and we do it at the end of the program. So
We
it's
guide
good. It's
you.
always good to have more experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because we have an experience, we are, as I said, tons of students, we are graduating from every country. I'm telling you. So far, I think 89 countries we graduated from. I counted the other week.
Oof, at least.
So, yeah,
At least.
so
Every year, we get someone from a different country I had never heard of. We have our first student from Guam right now. Uh, uh, Jemima, if you're out there,
yeah.
hope to get you back soon. Um, so I never had a student from Guam before, which is exciting.
Exactly.
But it's always interesting. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think we pass over one of the questions from Burçin again. She's talking about the university programs. I want to touch base on that
Sure.
if
Absolutely.
that's the right time. So, Burçin, good question actually. So we have contracted 4 universities: Miami-Dade College, Broward, Liberty, and Embry-Riddle. You're specifically asking about Embry-Riddle. I know why, because this is the Harvard of the aviation, right?
Everyone
So
knows
as
Embry-Riddle.
you may, yeah, exactly. So for the Europeans, it's Oxford, right? So Embry-Riddle University, yes, it's been there for almost a century, right? This is the biggest university in terms of providing programs in aviation. We have a contract, really good contract with Embry-Riddle University, good program. Recently started actually. It's a BS degree, Bachelor's of Science on aerospace. So 4-year degree together with CPL, commercial pilot training, 3 years in the university and 1 year here in Wayman premises. So it's a great program, really economical if you compare. Just shoot me an email. I can send you the template for it, actually, Burçin, or the other interested people as well. I can give this template to you guys. The good thing about university programs are one stone, two birds. So if you are interested in getting your BS degree, start with this program. It's really a competitive program. I know European universities actually, so it's really economical if you compare with that, with a great name, Embry-Riddle behind it. So once you get your university degree, you will have your commercial pilot license in your pocket. So in short, how it goes, you're joining us, getting your commercial pilot license, and then it is counted towards your total credits. 124 credits, so commercial pilot license is 33 credits. So you will have 80-something credits waiting for you to finish with Embry-Riddle University. While you're finishing Embry-Riddle University, obviously this is your instructor training is overlapping with your Embry-Riddle University program as well. Once you get your instructor license, through the program, you will be one of the Wayman instructors. So you will be working for us and training students, which means, again, one stone, two birds. You're going to make money. You're going to live in the United States up to 6 years. That's a great program. And if you have any option in the future to stay in the United States and be airliner pilot here, you will have finished your 1,500 hours easily with this program. If you want to go back to your country with a BS program with the name of one of the biggest universities in the world, then that's a great program as well. I don't know, what do you think, Eddie?
Well, we're huge fans of Embry-Riddle, right? So we've been partners with Embry-Riddle, yeah, I'd say probably about 7 years now. And they have a local campus here in Fort Lauderdale, about 20 minutes away. And so it's a popular program. You know, people fly with us and they take classes 2 days a week with Embry-Riddle. They can actually just go one day and knock them both out because one can be done online. Big fans of Embry-Riddle. My brother graduated from Embry-Riddle, class of '98, I believe. And he's actually the Embry-Riddle alumni rep for Broward. So we're very big fans of Embry-Riddle. There's a reason why our colors are blue and gold. It's a great program. Astronauts come out of Embry-Riddle. So you can't go wrong with it. It's got a wonderful network. Now we also work with Miami-Dade College, which is actually about the same price, but they have a 2-year program. And some people consider it a little bit simpler because it's a local school here. It's actually the largest community college in the United States with 7 campuses. And Liberty University, if we have anybody here that's a US citizen or a veteran, Liberty University has excellent programs with great financial aid for flight training. So I highly recommend Liberty University for anyone in the US. You do all your classes online and you do your flying in person with us. Now, there was a good question, another good question here from Mr. Moidi about speeding up their flight training, about how quickly it could be done. Now, our program is accelerated, right? What a student at Embry-Riddle or Miami-Dade College does in 2 to 3 years, our full-time international students do it in 1 year. 1 year, about 10 to 12 months is what the program is designed for. And that's flying 4 to 5 days a week, weather permitting. That's what we really aim for because the visa is 1 year. So we want to have you done within that 1 year. Now, uh, flying those 3, 4, 5 days a week is very doable. Flying 7 days a week, it's very easy to burn out.
Yes.
Burn out, right? Now, that being said, we've had some dedicated individuals that did that. I can think of two off the top of my head. We had an excellent student from Peru who flew his butt off. He basically lived at the school, but he was a career changer, right? He was probably pushing 30, maybe like 28, 29. He was already an industrial engineer. His father was a pilot. His brother was a pilot. And he knew what he wanted to do. He knew how to study. And he came and he just flew every single day, did the entire program in 5.5 months. 5.5 months. Can you believe that? The other one was actually a young guy from Hong Kong. And he just had, again, an amazing ability to study, absorbed the material very well, and was very dedicated to flying here every day. Right? So it can be done, but most of our students were aiming for that 1 year finish. And 1 year is wonderful. If you think about it, right now is June, right? Let's say you started with us in the August class. That means by August of next year, you could be a commercial pilot, right? That means 1 year, like if your birthday is today, your next birthday, you could be a commercial pilot, right? So that's pretty amazing, I think, that we can do that, because I know that if you're learning to fly in Peru or in Europe or in Brazil, it's easily a 2 to 3 year program where you go and you fly on the weekends and you take little chips at it, right? But for those of us that really want to make that move and accelerate, I highly recommend a full-time program. Again, even here in the US, right? You can do an accelerated program if you're a US student. It's hard to do if you're working, going to school, and have family responsibilities, right? Which I check off all those boxes. I'm working, I've got family responsibilities, I'm studying on the side. I'm not a good candidate to be a full-time student, right? But if you're able, right now we have COVID and a lot of people have stopped, unfortunately, working or doing a lot of the things that were taking up their time. If you have the funding available to you, right now you can start flying, dedicate a lot of time to it, and be a commercial pilot within the year, right? Now, this leads to another conversation. I'm gonna take a detour here, Erkan, if it's okay. So right now it's a tough time with the airlines, right? But it's also probably the best time to start flying, whether it's with us or XYZ Flight School in Texas or California, wherever you are, because there's a lot of opportunity right now. First of all, if you look at the graph of airline recovery, most graphs tell us that the airlines are going to be back to about 60, 75% by the end of the year, right? With the final 25% being next year. So they should be back to 100% by the end of 2021 going into 22. So if you start your flight training now and it takes you a year and a half, you're going to line up with the airlines coming back and maybe even needing pilots, right? Not only that, you usually have to build those 1,000 hours of experience. So that's a great opportunity there. And there's a lot of good specials going on, right? Like I know we're running specials, but all around the internet, I'm seeing, discounted pricing. I'm seeing a lot of availability. Our flight school is operating at, what would you say, Erkan, 65%, 70% capacity?
65.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which means we have airplanes available for you to fly. You're not waiting.
Yeah.
You can fly 5-6 days a week right now if you want. We have a housing special, 3 months of housing for people that are coming in for out of the country. And I'm seeing that, I'm seeing that all over the country. I'm seeing schools offering free housing, health insurance. We're throwing in health insurance for anybody that wants to learn how to fly. It's just a really interesting time because most flight schools don't give discounts. It seems like the price keeps going up and up and up, right? And it's because our expenses keep going up. The price of fuel, which also is at a historic low, the price of housing, insurance, all those things keep going up. So the price of flight training is going up. But if you've wanted to do it, now's the time to take advantage of these deals that I've never seen before in flight training.
It is the best time actually. So it's going to take 1.5 to 2 years anyways to be on the right seat, especially for American local people, 1,500 hours. I know Europeans and Latin America or Far East is really like lucky because they are going into the right seat in Airbus or Boeing with 200 hours. But again, starting now is like buying a cheap house because, real estate go down because of the COVID and gas prices going down, everything is went down. Most of the schools have, including us, we have some promotions. As Eddie said, we are providing health insurance 1 year free. You have to have a health insurance here if any, in case of anything happens. Free housing for 3 months and almost $2,000 discount on the total price. These are great things that for you to start. By the time you start and finish, the airliners will be back again 100% up to the peak. So actually, dedication and determination brings the success. So just want to say that once, I'm saying it again, once you start, you're actually finishing 50% of it. And lock down the price. Start now, enroll with the school wherever you're going, and lock down that price. So maybe 5 or 6 months later, the price is going to go up. You never know. It's a good point.
You said something there that that I think is very true, and I like to build on. You said it's like buying a house, right? It's you of course you want to buy a house when the market is cheap, right? I was lucky. I bought my first house, my starter home with my wife during the 2008, 2010 kind of crash when prices were low, right? So that value goes up. Right now, flight training and education of any kind is an investment, right? Right now, if you want to learn how to play guitar and you put in that's an investment in your time, right? But that's something you're going to have and it's going to hopefully get better as you grow older. So I feel that flight training is also one of those. Aviation is one of those. If you're career oriented into aviation, right? Learning how to fly is something that, you put in the effort, you learn a very specialized skill, right? And it should pay you back in the future. Now, aviation has its ups and downs, like many careers. But if you think about it, aviation, the cost of aviation varies dramatically around the world. Embry-Riddle that we talked about, if you went to go study at Embry-Riddle in Daytona Beach, their main campus, you're looking at $150,000 education, right? If you learn how to fly in Europe with one of the academies in Europe, you're easily looking at 100,000 euros to learn how to fly, right? Our program is 55,000. And that's really all flight training, all ground school, all the theory side of things. I think it's a really good value for what we do. But not only that, talk about deals. Right now, it's $5,000 off of that because we decided to keep 2019 pricing instead of coming up to 2020 pricing, right? So you want to get into the market, as they say, when prices are low. And again, that's whether you're flying with us or you're flying with XYZ school in Texas or in your own countries, right? Ask, do you have any deals right now? Everybody would be happy to have you as a student right now, right? They've got planes. In most cases, they're trying to pay for the note, the loan on that airplane. So they'd be happy to have another customer. So ask for the deals. I'm being very open about what we're doing. People out there might be even more creative than us, but it's a good time to ask.
Exactly. So talking about price, I would like to touch base with one of the biggest questions actually I'm getting. What is included in the program, right? So everybody is wondering about what is included in $49,500. So that's a big question. Obviously, tuition is included. Tuition means whatever connected to training. This means flight hours, ground hours, everything around flight training. But obviously, there are some extras. Whichever school you go, you're going to pay these extras, not to the school, but the government bodies, which is TSA, Transport Security Administration, fingerprint check, FAA medical, written exams, and check ride fees and all that. Consider something around $3,000 to $4,000 extra to the tuition that you're going to pay to the government. Also, eating, drinking, accommodation comes into the game plan as well. So another question coming to me, do you have housing and how much it is? And how much does it cost to live in the United States? Miami in the movies sounds like really expensive place. Actually, it's not that expensive. You compare with New York or Washington, D.C. or Seattle, some of the parts here. Especially, I can take Florida. I don't know if Eddie joins me or not, but Florida is kind of like Mecca for flights and Mecca for universities. A lot of universities, a lot of students here is the center for the education.
Everybody
That's
wants to be in
why
Florida.
it is, yeah. Starting from markets all the way to rents, it's really accommodative. It's really nice here. So yes, we have housing. Housings are, I can say luxuries actually. You can always reach to our real photographs in Wyman.net. So those are $650 per month per student. And great facilities, swimming pools and billiards and basketball courts and all that. It is roughly 3 miles, which is 5 kilometers away from our campus. And students mostly choosing scooters, sometimes bicycles, and we have buses passing by our school and reaching up to our accommodations as well. You can use that. And you can choose to buy a car actually. And you can
Can I
sell the
share?
car when you finish.
So let me share a piece of advice that somebody told me, completely unrelated to aviation. This was back in the day when I was looking at colleges. I was actually looking at master's programs. And somebody told me, decide where you want to live, right? And then look at schools in that area, right?
Yeah.
Because where you go to live, where you want to live, you know, first of all, it's your quality of life. It's how you're going to spend that year, 2 years, 3 years that you're living there. And that also becomes your network, right? Where you go to study kind of becomes your network, right? If, for example, we're in Miami, right? So if I wanted to be a lawyer, would I go study law in Georgia? I don't know, maybe if I wanted to live in Georgia and practice law in Georgia, right? But if I wanted to practice law in South Florida, I'd go to University of Miami's law school, right? That's where all the lawyers know each other, all the judges, the politicians, they all learn how to study there, right? So I'm a big fan of here in South Florida because it's a huge international aviation hub, right? Here you've got Miami International and Fort Lauderdale International, which are huge connections to Europe, South America. Miami is the capital of South America. I think we can all agree to that. Everyone in the US comes down to Miami. It's a huge transition point. And then you've got Opa-locka Executive Airport, which is one of our bases. And that's one of the huge hubs for executive travel. That's where all the business jets, the Gulfstreams, the Learjets, the Citations fly in and out of Opa-locka, right? So you're in this atmosphere. And so who do you meet? You meet other pilots that are going to be working executive or going to be working international. They're going to be working for the airlines that have bases right here, you know, including not just like American and Delta and United, but LAN, LATAM, Copa, LATAM and LAN are the same thing, right? Atlas, which is a huge cargo carrier. They all have their big headquarters here in South Florida. So think about where you want to live. Also, the quality of life here is wonderful. Would I want to live in North Dakota where it's cold and icy every day? That's just not me, right? But here you can fly almost every day of the year, and I really do enjoy living here in South Florida. We're close to the beach, but don't think you're going to see the beach all the time because you're going to be busy. You're going to be studying, right?
Exactly.
So it's nice to be able to treat yourself and go to the beach, but you know, we want you to be studying.
You're right. Discipline.
So
Yeah, actually. Yeah, you're right.
yeah, we were just talking about how we don't go to the beach
Yeah.
enough.
I get you.
So there's a good question
Another
here from
question.
Facebook from Ahmed.
Yeah.
Sorry.
What was that?
Yeah, so there's a question here from Ahmed about work permits and visas after graduation for international studies. That's an excellent question, right? So to work in the US, you need a work permit, right? A work permit. And the student visa does not allow for work, right? So when you're here studying, you're a full-time student getting your licenses. Now, once you have your commercial license, we usually work with our partner programs to transition you to an F1 visa that has OPT. That's, what does OPT stand for? Operational Practical Training, I believe is what it stands
Yes,
for.
occupational
Occupational Practical Training, right?
training.
So what does that
Optional
mean?
practical training.
Yes. So if you're with our partners, Miami-Dade or Embry-Riddle, then what you do is you finish with us, you transfer into their visa, and now you have access to a legal work permit in the US as a pilot. Now that doesn't mean that you're going to get this permit and work as an accountant. That's not legal. It has to be related to your training, and your training was as a pilot. So under that OPT, Occupational Practical Training, you can work as a flight instructor, you can work charters, you can banner tow, you can do sightseeing tours, right? Because they're all related to being a pilot.
Pilot,
Now,
commercial
those
pilot.
have limits. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those have limits, but it's a great place to get those first 500,000 hours of flight training or flight experience. Would you agree with that, Erkan?
Yes, that's a great point. So university programs are one of the best, actually. That's why I mentioned for the Burçin's question. OPTs are great, powerful product in our hands to keep you here and make you work and get an experience. So Mr. Gian answering your questions in the chat room, actually, he's one of our experienced instructors from Curacao. So he's been living here for long years and a lot of experience you're gaining out of it. 1,500 hours you're flying in United States airspace, one of the most dense and populated airspace in the world. So it's a huge experience. And that makes you be chosen among the others when you apply for the airliner.
Yeah.
Be sure. I want to jump onto one of the really good questions here from Argentina, actually. So let me find that.
Some good steak, some tango.
Yeah, Christian Sporch, I think. Greetings from Argentina. Many airlines are reducing their schedules and number of flights, at least for the time being. What are your thoughts about the age? So he's asking about somebody around the 45. It's a good question. Actually, it's a parallel to what you told us, Eddie. So airliners are coming back. Let's remember, where were they when we left them before the COVID, right? So let me tell you this. I was being trained as an ops manager in American Airlines. One of my friends was 57. He refreshed his commercial pilot license and he went back to American Airlines. So not far, like it was 1 year ago, you see. So basically the airliners will come back to that point again. They're going to look for pilots with a flashlight, but let's get ready for it. I am 45 as well. Sometimes I'm thinking as well, shall I go back? You know, it's never late. Burçin had asked me that question as well as a female candidate. It's never late. And 45, 50, up to 50, I think it's a perfect time for you to start and apply for the airliners. I don't know, what do you think, Eddie, especially cargo carriage?
I fully agree. Now, aviation is one of those things that it's in your blood. You have to do it if you're a pilot at heart. And the retirement age, the official retirement age for the airlines here is 65, right? And many of those captains go on to fly executive, you know, for another 10, 15 years. I remember our chief instructor, like early 2000s, Mr. Shlomo Cohen, Israeli gentleman, wonderful guy. He flew until he lost his medical, and he was, I'd say, at least 80. I'd say at least 80, right? And so if you're starting a little bit later, the airlines want to recoup their investment in you. They want to, you know, it's going to cost $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 for them to give you a type rating, which is the specialized training to fly a 737 or an Airbus, right? So they want to know they can get some time out of your training, you know, whether that's 20 years or 15 years or 10 years. That's part of their calculation. All right. Now, what I do see is we have a lot of career changes, right? Maybe right now you're working as an accountant or an architect or something like that. You've owned your own business and you've saved up enough money that now you want to change the view. You're tired of working in the cubicle, right? So I've got a lot of those. I've got 2 accountants and 1 engineer right now that are learning the commercial pilot's license certificates. And so they go through the program. And what I see from them is they're much more mature, focused, and dedicated, right? Because they're not an 18-year-old kid, you know, messing around, going to the beach, that kind of stuff. They're focused on their flight training. They know what they need, you know, and they get really busy. Like that gentleman I talked about earlier from Peru, Mr. Zender. He was, I think, in his late 20s, maybe about 30, and he just came and he hit it hard, and he went right into TACA, which is now LATAM, right? So it's absolutely doable. And if it's not airlines, cargo, pilots fly cargo for a long time, and executive. We have a lot of people that leave the airline world to go to the executive world. And some of those airplanes are more modern and beautiful than a Boeing or an Airbus.
Business jets, right?
Yeah, business jets. Now, Erkan, we're kind of getting to the end of our hour. So I'd say maybe like another 5 minutes or so. We could probably take at least one more question.
There's a privately question here from Amro. He's asking me, what is the difference between FAA and EASA? Actually, shortly, I would like to touch base on that because two two big bodies, right? If I say, when it comes to aviation regulations.
Yeah.
So we are FAA school, and we have a sister school back in Europe, in Greece and Italy. With their help, we are providing EASA license as well, not training. So what is the difference? He's asking me, he has planned to settle down to Europe, maybe Turkish Airlines or Lufthansa or whatever. So obviously, FAA is regulated in the United States. It's a regulating body. EASA, European Aviation and Safety Organization, is in Europe. So whichever country you want to work in the future, Amro, I would recommend you to get that license. For example, let's check Qatar, for example. If Qatar Airlines in the Middle East is accepting EASA, then it is better for you to target EASA license. But don't forget something, EASA license takes almost 2 years, 24 months. The easiest way to reach the EASA license, which I had known it before, I wouldn't start Belgium flight school, you know, to get the FAA license in a fast way, because FAA license is 10 to 12 months, right? While getting your FAA license, start your EASA requirements so that you can convert your FAA license into EASA license easily, okay? So FAA license conversion to EASA license is about two things. One, there are 14 different classes, 14 different exams you're gonna sit. It takes 5 to 6 months, not additional, because while you're going through our training here, you can start those courses online, so you can overlap too, so you don't lose time, right? The second paragraph on that is EASA conversion flight hours, which is roughly 20, 25 hours, and it takes half a month, maximum 1 month. Then you have FAA commercial pilot license and EASA commercial pilot license in your pocket. Now, 99% of the world is covered for you. So I think it's a good answer for you. So I'm paraphrasing again. Start with FAA while you're doing your FAA training. Start EASA theory. Once you finish FAA, conduct your EASA flight conversion flights, and then get your EASA license as well. That's the best and most economic way at the moment. And you're getting two biggest licenses in the world at the same time.
Now, I always like to say the pilot's license is, you know, it's a worldwide career, right?
Yes.
You might wake up today in Miami, go to sleep in Paris, do an overnight, and then be on your way to Tokyo. Those of you that fly cargo, you know, you take off here, go through Alaska over to Russia. You go where the work is, right? You go where the work is. And so we've seen a lot of pilots that, you know, got their license, their original license in Argentina or in Ecuador, and they come up to the U.S. to get the commercial license, and then before you know it, they're working for Emirates, you know, out in UAE. So you really go where the work is. So that's part of just being an international world traveler. It's part of that mentality. So you do want to have at least an FAA or an EASA license in your pocket, because those are the two most recognized around the world. You know, we had an instructor, Captain, oh my gosh, his name escapes me right now. So this captain was originally from Venezuela, and he had 5 ATP licenses. He had the Venezuelan ATP, he had the US ATP, he had the ATP in Qatar, the EASA one that he got in France, and his 5th one, I want to say it was Colombia, because he was working in Colombia also. The man had 5 ATP certificates. You know, you meet some pilots, and they've got 2 pilot's licenses or 3 pilot's licenses because they've got so many type ratings on them, right? Like Captain Bill Blauer, one of the examiners here, has like 3 of these because he's got so many different type ratings on the back. One just says warbirds. He can fly any warbird, which is pretty cool. I want to fly some warbirds. But we're kind of getting to the end of the hour. Any closing thoughts, Erkan? Anything you want to say to student pilots?
That was great points. And the last point from my side would be we have a referral program. That's great. I would like to talk about it as well. Yeah. So basically, our students are referring our academy to each other, and we are compensating them with up to $500 for each student they are referring us. And it's really a solid and perfect program for you to bring your friends and fly together and start your training together, and then we can provide you the compensation for that. That will be the last thing from my side.
You know what, that's a good tip, again, that applies to most schools. Most schools have a referral program, right? Bring a buddy with you. Bring 2, bring 3, right? It's just more fuel in the tank for you to fly. And like I said, any flight school in the world right now would be happy to have you as a student. If you have the passion to learn how to fly, If you can't help but stop in the parking lot and look up at the sky and try to figure out what kind of plane is above you, go for a flight. And even more so, go for a discovery flight. If you're not ready to make the investment in full flight training, go to your local flight school, whatever airport is down the road from you, and ask around if they do discovery flights. That's usually a 1-hour flight. It costs usually between $150 to $200. And you go up for a flight. We do it in a Cessna 172, like this one right here, right down the beach, right? So if you're in Miami, you can call us. We do discovery flights for $179. And in that 1 hour, you're in the controls. You're in the pilot seat on the controls. You've got an instructor next to you telling you what to do the whole time, very safe, right? You can usually take a passenger in the back, maybe your mom, your wife, your girlfriend, whoever it might be, right? Whoever has to write the check or say yes or no. And go for that flight, right? In that 1 hour, you're gonna know if you love it or you hate it, right? And if you love it, you're never gonna wanna do anything else. And if it wasn't for you, it was a good way to spend a Saturday morning, right? So I think everyone should go for a discovery flight.
Great point.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't see any other questions here.
Well, we're up on time. I want to thank everyone in the Zoom, everyone in Facebook for hanging out with us. I think this was really good. I'd like to do it again sometime. And you know, continue leaving your questions in the Facebook. We'll continue answering them as long as questions keep coming up. We're doing these webinars about every 3 weeks. We're calling them Webinar Wednesdays. Yes. So we'll do live ones about every few weeks, and we'll make sure to let you know when those come up. Yeah, so thank you for joining us all. Visit us at wayman.net, #FlyWayman, and you can get us on all the social media channels at Wayman Aviation. That's Instagram, that's Twitter, that's TikTok, that's YouTube. We have a great YouTube channel, and I'll make sure that this goes up on the YouTube. So make sure to like, subscribe, and leave us your comments, because we'll keep looking at them and we'll keep answering questions as long as you have them.
That's great. See you soon among us and in the skies.
Thanks, everyone. Blue skies.
Thank you.